Good afternoon, everyone. 4 o'clock straight up. It is indeed a Wednesday edition of Middays with Q coming at you right here on TriX57, of course, X, my YouTube channel as well, Facebook Live. As always, I'm your host, Rich Quiñones. We are live Monday to Friday, 4 to 6. And of course, give us a follow. Always get social with us. We'll take you up to 6 o'clock straight up, 2 hours to play with on this July 23rd, 2025. Busy show, as always, brings something to the table. A lot of NFL news and notes and nuggets to get into. We will also have our weekly spot with Nick Costco. We'll talk a little ACC college football today, get his thoughts on the hoodie, and we'll mix in a little baseball. By the way, excellent. Got to give the little shout out. Excellent job last night. Joe's Surf Shack in Belmar. We hosted the first Running with the Breaks podcast for the Jersey Shore Breaks of the TBL, and they were fantastic. They were just absolutely fantastic hosts. It was a great place, great food, lively action, good entertainment. The place was absolutely filled up. It was a phenomenal job. You had a bunch of corporate community business partners as well who were there. And it was just a very, it's great to see, even you get those semi-pro, those smaller pro teams in certain communities. And, people were gravitating towards that, and they were enjoying it last night. And went on the air about an hour and a half, talked to some players, head coach, and just got a little insight from the ownership group. And also, how about this? I can't have the product on the table. You can't do that. But how about this? My guys over at Three Brooks, bourbon and whiskey. How about that? That's not bad. That's not bad at all. They were doing some samples, so that was pretty fun last night for those that dabble into that. We just kind of leave it at that. So, yeah, give them a follow on IG. There were some really good companies there last night, and it was a very fun time. So, appreciate everyone who came out last night, and it's good to be back in the saddle. It is a Woosah Wednesday, and as you guys know, on a Woosah Wednesday, um, we try to be a little more low key, right? Because now I think we've already established that Thursday is going to be a thought out Thursday. So the Wednesday is a Woosah Wednesday. But let me just say this, NFL wise, it's not even July 24th. We're a day or so in the training camp, and the friggin' Philadelphia Eagles are already on my last friggin' nerve. They're already on my last friggin' nerve. I mean, I don't want to hear this nonsense from Eagles players coming out saying that, they're not defending anything. Just stop with the nonsense. Seriously, just stop with the nonsense. I don't bristle at the fact that you are the defending Super Bowl champs. Nobody wants to hear that nonsense. Like, what are you going to play? You going to play that martyr card, the victim card? Is that what you're going to do right now? You're basically setting yourself up saying right away, we're not defending anything. Yeah, you are. That's why it's called the defending Super Bowl champs, the defending NBA champs, the defending Stanley Cup champions. Yeah, sorry, that's the label. Like, embrace it, deal with it, accept it. Like, I just do not want to hear this nonsense today that, we're going to go game at a time and we're not looking in the past. And that's, oh, stop. You hear that kind of stuff, and already it's annoying. It really is. It's already annoying because nobody wants to hear this nonsense. Like, I get it. You want to be locked in, and it's a new season and it's a new journey. Fine. But I mean, Jordan Mailata, we just won the title and now we got to win it again, prove it all over again. That's the mentality the team's going to have. We're not here to prove anything to anyone else but ourselves. And we know the mission. We're mission focused. We're the 2024 world champs. That's it. We're not defending blank. I mean, yeah, you are. I don't like hearing we're the defending champs. We're not defending nothing. Just stop. Stop with that crap. Just embrace it. Embrace it. So we're going to get into that a little bit today. I know, NBA stuff. You guys want me to hit on that Jeff Teague stuff on LeBron. We might have a moment or two of that, and then you hear the other big news potentially coming down today. That Well, two things. Well, in DC, Commanders officially placed our guy Terry McLaurin on the reserve did not report list. But the other big news coming out is ESPN and the NFL Network. And now that ESPN and the NFL are close to a deal that would make programming available to ESPN's direct to customer product this fall. So again, that is ESPN swooping in, the mothership, potentially acquiring the NFL Network. We can also dive into that as well. So we got a lot of, as I said, a lot of NFL again going on. But I don't want to hear. Today, I actually don't want to hear the nonsense with the friggin' Philadelphia Eagles. Like it's corny talk. That's what makes the friggin' fan base just so annoying. And now this team on July 23rd is already annoying. Like, you are the defending Super Bowl champs. And yet, for some reason, you don't want to sit there and say you're defending Super Bowl champs. You want to play that other goofiness, the babe in the woods nonsense. We're just going to focus on the task at hand. Stop. Embrace it. Yeah, we're the defending champs. We know everyone. See, that's the difference, right? When you win a Super Bowl, everyone is gunning for you, which means everyone is going to now give you their best shot. I mean, you should always give the team you're playing your best shot, but now there's a little more added, a little juice to it. So now you hear the Eagles come out with this kind of nonsense and the players kind of like brush it off. Hey, we know. We already know. Like, you are the defending Super Bowl champs. Just wear it, right? Wear it. Look who's deciding to join us today. Hey, listen, we had a scheduled prior engagement, man. We had a scheduled prior engagement, and we made that announcement. So there's zero juice to that. I don't even know what that is. I don't even know that's half juice. De facto chimes in. Of course, we're talking about the Eagles. How about for the rest of the year, you only refer to Eagles as defending Super Bowl champs? Put some respect on their name. I mean, have I not said the defending Super Bowl champs? I'm not going to friggin' put respect on their name, because honestly, now I'm going to kibosh it. Me talking about they're going to defend, they're going to make a deep run. I hope they finish with 5 wins, 6 wins. How's that de facto? Yeah, they're defending champs. My problem is that they are trying to play this little game where they're going to act like there's no pressure on them to defend. There's no pressure on them heading into the season. Yeah, there is. You got an opportunity to go back to back. There's pressure there. I don't want to hear this playing with house's money. I don't want to hear that nonsense. I don't. And Jalen Hurts not wearing his ring. He's a different bird. He's a quirky little bird. He's a little different animal. And I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. But like, saying those comments when you have veterans come out and they bristle at it, all I'm saying is, again, saying, yeah, we're defending champs. We know teams are going to gun for us. That's not a distraction. That's admitting what we already know. That's all. That's admitting what we already know. That they are the defending Super Bowl champs. Act like it. Act like it. That's all I'm saying. Like, don't play this little babe in the woods nonsense. The little victim, the little martyr. Oh, woe is we. Yeah, you won the friggin' championship. You dominated the Kansas City Chiefs in the Super Bowl. You had a wonderful season. I mean, it was a franchise. It was a great run. Now you got training camp. You're allowed to sit there and still bask in it and say, yeah, we know people are going to gun for us. We know teams are going to go at us, period. We don't have to sit there and say it's a new year. It's a new genre. It's a new year. Just stop. That's just goofy talk. It is. It's goofy talk. You want to be the hunted. You don't want to be the hunters. When you're the hunted, that means everyone's gunning for you because you won. All those years to Pats, all those years Kansas City, all those years with the Dallas Cowboys, the Steelers, the 49ers, teams were gunning at them. Teams were going in on them because they knew they were the champs. You want to knock off the champ. You want to knock off the king. You want to knock them off their perch, right? To beat the man, you got to be the man. I mean, that's you guys know that. You know that. So like now, going into the season, I think there's going to be, I think there's going to be a little bit of that chippiness every time teams take on the Philadelphia Eagles now, and they should, and they should. And all I'm saying is that if look, if you win the Super Bowl and you win in dominating fashion, you are allowed to stick your chest out. You're allowed to be arrogant. You're allowed to brag a little bit. You can have fun with it. And yes, you can play the card when training camp starts. It's a different animal. And here we go. But to act as though you're not the defending champs, and even though it's coach speak or player speak, is utterly ridiculous. It's utterly ridiculous. Wear that with a badge of honor, because if they race out to 10-1, or say they get back there and they win it again, what are they going to not sit there and say? Oh, well, we were the defending champs. People tried to knock us off. I'm just not buying that crap. Yes, Russell Wilson named quarterback 1 in New York. That's not a surprise. I'm already preventing Kevin C from chiming in because I know he's listening. Not a big deal. Not a big deal at all. We will get into that. You got some contract issues in the NFL as well. As I mentioned, the whole stuff going on right now with ESPN, the NFL Network. And I told you guys this years ago, everything's going to be a la carte. Just get used to it. Everything a la carte, everything a la carte, everything a la carte, period. We will also get into a little college football today. Costco is going to join us. ACC today is what we are going to take a deep dive in. The hoodie, Belichick. The pressure on Belichick. A lot of people think there's best case and worst case, and a lot of people, pundits, are leaning towards the worst case scenario for Belichick, where they've got issues at the quarterback position. They can't score any points. Their offense is bad. Belichick decides one and done, and he's gone. So we will dive into that as well, which should be fun, which is always fun. So as I mentioned, again, quick timeout, 12 past 4 o'clock hour, cranking up on a Woosah Wednesday thus far, 12 minutes in. We're feeling pretty good. I will deal with the Eagles fans that are chiming in a moment. Giant fans, relax. We already knew Wilson was going to be the starter. Got some news and notes I want to dive into as well. Keep it locked down on Wednesday edition. Middays with Q. We'll take you up to 6.
This is what the Down Beach Seafood Fest is all about. It's about community, it's about friends, it's about culture, right? The food culture in Atlantic County is rich.
All right, quick timeout, as I mentioned. 13 past 4 o'clock hour, Woosah Wednesday. Don't forget to always get social with us, Tracks57 on IG and X. And, of course, you can log on tracks57.com. You can follow me on X and, of course, on Facebook. What do we got there? X. What did I just say? X again. And IG at Rich Q on you, TikTok, Rich Q on the mic, YouTube channel as well. Always a good follow. And as we've already learned, he is the value pack. When we say economically sound, if we're talking about cost efficient, our guy who does a fantastic job, college sports, on 3 Sports, play-by-play, RU Wrestling, Cal Live Sports, Nick Costco. What's going on, my friend?
Just another day in paradise. Obviously, you got ACC Media Days, Big Ten Media Days simultaneously, so it's all in good fun. Feel like you get through the SEC, you're like, all right, a little bit of a break before college football actually begins, but no, you got to get through all these. And we already have Big 12s as well, so on and on we go. But should be another interesting year when it comes to ACC football. And obviously, we were talking hamburgers today. We were talking Rhett Lashley getting lambasted by Paul Feinbaum and Chris Russo, and I'll tell you what, the ACC certainly can drum up a little bit of controversy, so to speak, compared to the lack of depth of the SEC, as Coach Lashley likes to put it.
Well, listen, I mean, I get it. I understand. you look at that conference, you got a lot of teams that have some monster, chances and odds to win their conference. I mean, obviously Clemson sits there plus 120, and we'll get into kind of the heavy favorites. Well, we'll start with them, but we also want to kind of take a little deeper dive, obviously, into Carolina and some sleepers. Also, want to get your thoughts on Miami as well, because I think there's a lot of pressure on the Hurricanes this year. So let's start. We'll kind of work away from top, and then we'll go all the way down. I mentioned that Clemson sits there. We always talk best case, worst case, right? So you got potentially a 12-0 situation here, opening win against LSU. Maybe that kind of sets the tone. You will go through their schedule, the wins and losses. Now, am I overselling 11-1, 12-0 with Clemson, or are we looking at worst case 9-3, 9-4 because the offseason hype kind of falls flat?
It could be a little bit of both. I would lean more towards an 11 or 12 win team this year for Clemson going back to the ACC championship game. Of course, they returned to that title game just last season, beat SMU, got to the playoff, but they fell short against Texas in the first round. But Clemson, to me, Rich, is they're kind of, I don't want to say turning back the clock a little bit, but of course, when we saw 10 years ago or within the last decade where Clemson was dominating the ACC and they were they were a playoff regular when it came to the 14 playoff, and we had those Clemson Alabama games in the national championship, of course the other playoff games as well. So that was a regular rivalry. I think Clemson is getting back towards that type of Clemson football, if you want to describe it like that. Dabo Swinney obviously has adapted to the new norm of college football a little bit, actually embracing the transfer portal, and he's getting into the NIL. We always joke about, him really putting his faith on display, trust in God himself, of course. But, I think he actually now is trusting that this is what the plan is now for Clemson. You have to adapt to the new times. And of course, they do bring back a pretty veteran heavy roster. It starts at quarterback with Kate Klubnik, had a career best year last year. Now, I think we've talked about it recently, you and I, that this kid could be the number one overall pick, or maybe at least the first quarterback taken in next year's draft if he has another season like he did last year. They have guys at wide receiver like Brian Wesco Jr., TJ Moore. Of course, you throw in the running back. There's a star freshman that people need to watch out for. Gideon Davidson should really step up this year on offense. But, I think what is really going to make Clemson stand out this year, and this is why they're going to be so good, and you already alluded to the fact that LSU's that first game of the year, and the good thing is for Clemson, it's in Clemson, so they get to host LSU, another top 10 team, probably when we look at the preseason rankings, or at least around the top 10. They get a win right there. It's going to set the tone for the rest of the season. They should, look at a 4-0 record before the bye week. Then they're at North Carolina, which I'm sure a lot of people are going to be looking at, depending upon the start for North Carolina this season to kick off October. But the schedule to me sets up quite well. Obviously, tough games against SMU, but also at home. They're at Louisville, which will be a little tough. And again, they're at South Carolina. But the difference to me, just to make my long-winded point here, the defense is really going to help out Clemson.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're looking at, you could say Kate Klubnik, first-round pick, maybe the number one overall pick. But they also are going to have probably 2 first-round picks just on that defensive line right in the middle with not right in the middle, with an edge rusher and defensive tackle in TJ Parker and Peter Woods. Those are guys that are going into their junior year, had great sophomore campaigns for Clemson last season, but now they looked at, okay, if those 2 guys make that defensive line go, opposing quarterbacks are going to have nightmares against these guys, and it only makes things easier for them in the back end when it comes to their defense. To me, Clemson is the favorite and should be the favorite this year, coming off of last year. And to me, an 11-1, 12-0 record wouldn't surprise me in the least. Now, could they falter in one of these games? Maybe lose to LSU, maybe South Carolina. They're 10-2, but are undefeated in ACC play. I can see a scenario like that, but they'll certainly, to me at least, be favored in all of their ACC and non-conference games. The ones that are at least at home. Maybe they'll be a road dog at South Carolina when we get to November, but Clemson, to me, looks like they're as loaded as they've been in quite some time.
Yeah, it's interesting. You mentioned the LSU and South Carolina. They open up the season with LSU. They bookend and close it out with South Carolina. But they do. It's very advantageous. I mean, Troy, they go on the road against Georgia State, Syracuse. Georgia Tech at home, on the road, Syracuse at home. I'm looking right now. Carolina, Boston College, SMU, Duke, Florida State, Furman. Yeah, I just Yeah,
You gotta watch out for Furman.
well,
No, nothing against Furman, but you have to watch out for Furman. It could be a sleeper game, before the South Carolina rivalry game.
right, right. I mean, I'm more inclined to agree with you. I'm looking at the
Mm,
12-0, 11-1. Um, I just think there's, two or three favorites, in the conference per se, right? Because
mhm,
even if you look at the short odds and you look at a team like Louisville, you look at a team like Miami, I think, with Carson Beck returning to full health, right, and basically assumes the NFL ready form that we kind of saw before the injury. This is a very quarterback friendly offense.
yeah.
Um, I don't see them losing a lot of games now. The only My only concern with Miami would be not being able to, rise to the challenge, as we like to say. Case in point, against a Notre Dame, a
Mhm,
Florida State. I'm just throwing out, a Florida, mind you. I
mhm,
just if they can't rise to the challenge of those teams, then I think they're going to be in trouble. Like you can't. Again, if you lose to a Notre Dame, if you lose to an SMU, you're in trouble. And now you're
mhm.
11-1 becomes your worst case scenario. Um, an 8-4 type of team, a 7-5 type of team, and I don't know if they've hit the ceiling yet, but I think I'm more high on Miami this year than a lot of people are.
You could be. I think it's Clemson and Miami, and then you have to throw in the SMUs of the world. Virginia Tech, I think people are a lot of high. I'm not as high on Virginia Tech this year, but I think people are expecting or maybe at least hoping for that breakout year from Brent Pry. I believe this is year 3 now for him as head coach of the Hokies. But to me, it's Clemson. To me, is the favorite, at least in my mind. Miami is your other team that's going to be in the running, and of course SMU. And then you talk
Are
about.
you more SMU recency bias because of last year?
No, I think SMU has a lot coming back. Obviously, again, when you talk about all of these teams and who's going to be set up for success, it starts with the quarterback position, and Kevin
Yeah.
Jennings is back. And I think SMU is a legitimate contender for the ACC once again. Maybe not to win it, but maybe at least to get back to the championship game. I think they are really good, but I think your top two are the Clemsons and Miamis of the world. SMU is that next tier, so to speak. I guess if you want to group it into tier 1 and tier 2. Tier 1 to me is Clemson and Miami, and I'll get to Miami in a second. Tier 2 is SMU, and then I think you have to throw in Louisville because they got, Jeff Brom again. You want to talk about friendly offenses, got Miller Moss from USC, so that helps at the quarterback position. Florida State is the biggest question mark to me. They could either be as bad as they were last year or maybe have a
Mhm.
big turnaround here in 2025. I'm more inclined to lean towards disaster, but maybe not actually be a disaster. I just don't see them having a gigantic turnaround where they're 10-2. So tier 2 to me is more of a SMU. And then you throw in Louisville. Georgia Tech is an interesting team this year as well. And then maybe Virginia Tech if they break out this year. But getting back to Miami, which is why I think I know you're high on them. I'm a little high on them too as well, but not as high as Clemson this year. Carson Beck, again, is the biggest question mark. If he's fully healthy, gives him a lot, gives him a reliable quarterback. The only thing is his interceptions jumped from 23 to 24, where he went from 6 to 12 last year. And of course, the elbow injury didn't help matters in the SEC championship game. And of course, he did not play in the college football playoff just last season. If he's at full health, he's going to give him a good option under center because it's in a quarterback friendly offense.
Mhm.
Offensive coordinator Shannon Dawson. You're going to have a guy like Mark Fletcher in the backfield who's pretty good, and they just got 2 transfer wide receivers this offseason cycle. Guys like Tony Johnson and C.J. Daniels will certainly help out on the offense. They beefed up the offensive line a little bit. James Brockermeyer, I believe, is going to be their starting center this year, if memory serves me correct. So they've elevated the talent, or at least have acquired the talent to surround Carson Beck with. This is a friendly offense for you. We turned Cam Ward, who, again, Cam Ward was already great, obviously, with his years at Washington State coming from Incarnate Ward. But we turned Cam Ward into the number 1 overall pick for how great he was last year, and he was a Heisman finalist. So we can do the same for you, hypothetically, and get you back into the good graces of those around college football and those around in NFL scouting circles, where if you play well, you're going to play yourself into a great draft position, and you're going to potentially help us win an ACC title and get to the college football playoff. And it's interesting you mentioned, the get up and go. Are they going to get up for the big game? And they came up small a little bit in some of those spots last year. Where it's, again, I know there were some controversies with some of the
Mhm. Mhm.
they were on the good end of things and they're on the bad end of things. But I think the first 4 games are going to tell a lot. Now, you would expect them to beat Bethune-Cookman and, of course, South Florida, but they're going to play the Florida Gators week 4, and they do open up against Notre Dame
Yep.
on that Sunday, August 31st. National, prime time on Sunday on ABC. That's going to be a huge game. You have the runner-ups and against a team in Miami that's looking to get to the playoff and beyond. So if they lose that game, I wouldn't hit the panic button yet, but then you have to measure, are they going to be good against Florida, which is another team that has a lot of expectations and a lot of pressure going to head coach Billy Napier, as we talked about the other week. That's going to be must-see TV in the middle of September. The winner of that game is going to probably be on the better end of things as we get through the next 2/3 of the season. But the schedule does help them out a little bit. I know they're at Florida State, but again, it's an in-state foe, and I'm not high on Florida State this year.
On the road against SMU.
Right. SMU is the big one. If you go towards the latter half of the schedule for Miami, at SMU to kick off November, that's going to be a tough game. They at least host Syracuse, which I don't think is going to be as good as last year, but pretty solid. And I do love head coach Fran Brown. NC State at home should be a win for Miami, but then you're at Virginia Tech,
Yep.
at Pittsburgh. Now, again, Virginia Tech, some questions for me, but people are high on them. Pittsburgh is always a tough out with Pat Narduzzi, who's been there for over a decade. And the fact that game is to end the season, it's on the road. Maybe Pitt's going to play spoiler, or maybe they're playing for that 8th or 9th win to really make a statement. Not an easy game in the least for Miami. So the schedule gets a little bit tougher, especially with those road games. But I think you'll have a good judge of Miami. If they're 4-0 and they have wins over Notre Dame and Florida, I think, barring disaster, you might want to pencil them in for at least 10 wins and a college football playoff appearance.
Is there more pressure? Carson Beck, what was he, 5 years with Georgia, 2 years as a starter, now final season in college with Miami, and then you saw what Miami was able to do last year for Cam Ward. Does it help him that he spent so much time, with that type of program, Georgia powerhouse? And do you believe there's pressure on him because of what transpired last year, or, trying to replace the man? It's very hard to be the man when you replace the man.
Right. And then Mario Cristobal addressed this yesterday to kick off ACC Media Days. It was like, we weren't searching for the next Cam Ward. We were searching for a guy like Carson Beck. And essentially when they, and I am paraphrasing here, when they found Carson Beck, they're like, we want the next Carson Beck, as in the next version of Carson Beck. We want to recapture what he really did well at Georgia. We want to hone in on that and add some new layers to his ability as a quarterback in this offense led by Shannon Dawson. And I think they can do that. And it is interesting the fact that you go back to, what is it, last year where they got off that 9-0 start. They lose to Georgia Tech, very uncharacteristic loss. And you're like, of course, Mario Cristobal, he's been a great coach with Oregon and Miami, but he always going to have that one game where you're left scratching your head. They bounced back with a win over Wake Forest, and then they got outpaced by Syracuse in the road, which really threw everybody for a loop, and hence why you had a Clemson SMU ACC championship game last year instead of Miami trying to play for all the marbles there to get into the playoffs. So it is interesting that you look at last year, it's like, do you want to replicate last year? You sure could have, because they scored a lot, but again, the games against Virginia Tech, Cal, Louisville, all three of those games in a row, Q, they scored 38, 39, and 52 points with Cam Ward at quarterback. Can they do it with Carson Beck? Maybe they can. It is a quarterback-friendly offense, and they certainly have the playmakers. But now you look at that defense. They gave up 34. They gave up 38. They gave up 45. They just got away with those wins last year. So if you're trying to evaluate the development from last year to this year, can they get out of those shootouts? Can they win a game where they have to grind it out? And last year, they couldn't grind it out against Georgia Tech. And I know it was more high scoring and there was a lot of turnovers, but they couldn't grind it out against Syracuse as well. So, and of course, the bowl game, forget the bowl game. I know they lost, by 1 point where Cam Ward didn't play in the second half, but can they grind out those tough games where everything is seemingly on the line? That to me is the bigger question mark for Miami. So can they replicate last year to an extent? Yes, but they have to become a new version of themselves, so to speak, with a different type of quarterback who has shown in the past he's pretty good. And I know, and it is interesting, not to get too long-winded again, but Carson Beck mentioned how they really didn't talk about his turnovers last year,
right? About
improving that, which was odd to hear that said out loud, considering he doubled his total from 6 to 12. I guess it's more of not an indictment, but it's more of they don't want Carson Beck to rein himself in. They brought him in to be that gunslinger because he can throw, he can throw it a country mile. He can make he can make those big throws where you're like, I don't know how the heck he did that. But also he has those head scratching throws where maybe if they bring it back a little bit. I think if they find that happy medium, they'll be better off. And again, the schedule maybe a little bit similar to last year, but that back half is very interesting. But again, this should be on paper at least a 10-win team, and then we'll see if they, obviously can get past, get over the hump of some of those grinded out games and maybe avoid the luck factor a little bit this year as well.
I think it's an interesting point. I think it's kind of the theme of the conference, right? I mean, you mentioned SMU before, and obviously they're going to get a little exposure early on in the season. Their odds to win the conference are plus 850. But as we talk about the quarterback position, Carson Beck, then you look at SMU and you look at Kevin Jenkins, right? I mean, here's a kid that if you go back to that game last year against Penn State's defense just did him in. I mean, he was sacked 3 or 4 times through some really bad picks. It's like, all right, now you got to shake that off again if you're going to be the leader of this team going forward. And I look at SMU, and they, again, just like the Miamis of the world, they have to take. You got to win against the teams that are like the heart, the meat of your schedule, right? And if he can kind of weather that storm with some of these games, then all of a sudden we'll take a look at him and we'll say, okay, you know what? He's a legit quarterback in college football. But that starts with beating some of these really tough teams. Now, the schedule: East Texas A&M, Baylor, Missouri State, TCU, a little mixed bag. I don't know if last year was smoke and mirrors. I'm not trying to say it was, but they were able to kind of overcome, like if you can overcome lesser opponents, a little tempo, fast, big strikes, boom, that's fine.
Right.
But man, if you step up in weight class and you can't, if you're trying to punch above your weight class and you're getting decked all the time, that's not good. And I kind of think SMU is somewhere in between. Could be a two-loss team. It could be a 7-win team and a 5-loss team. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a little bit in between, I guess, where you probably can't necessarily expect them to be as good as the last 2 years. And don't forget, Rhett Lashley has led this team to 11 wins 2 seasons in a row. And I know they ended last year with a loss in the playoff where, the playoff debates aside, and I don't want to go backwards a year where you're debating whether SMU and Clemson, well, Clemson got them as they had the automatic bid, but when you're debating SMU and Indiana to get in over 3-loss SEC teams, I'm not going to bring that back up, as I agree with SMU getting in, but when you are looked at as a team that kind of lucked itself into the playoff where you were 11-1, you got into the championship game, but you lost to Clemson, and then you lost in the first round of the playoffs, it's like, all right, what team actually are you? Because in the Clemson game, it came down to the wire. Against Penn State, as you just alluded to, they were completely overmatched. Going to Penn State, they just couldn't get anything going offensively. Kevin Jennings returned this year for a purpose. Say, we want to run this back. We want to get further. We want to win the ACC. We're, like any good team would say, our goal is to win a national championship. Am I going to sit here and pick SMU as a dark horse to even win the national championship or get that far? No, I'm not. But I think what Rhett Lashley has done with this program is very good because, again, in 3 years, he led them to 7 wins and then back-to-back 11-win seasons. So I think it's reasonable to expect that again this year, or at least to strive for that again this year. They've rebuilt certain parts of the team this year through the transfer portal. 2 new linemen up front. They got a new wide receiver in Ymir Knight, a junior transfer. And then on the defensive side, 2 new defensive linemen. They beefed up the linebacking core a little bit with a couple transfers as well. So I think with what they brought back, despite what they lost last year, I think they are setting themselves up to be another good football team this year. I think most of the predictions have them around that 3-5 range in the ACC. And like I said before, if you're breaking it down into tiers, you have Miami, you have Clemson. To me, it's Clemson over Miami, but that's your tier 1. Your tier 2 is led by SMU, and then kind of whoever else you want to throw into that tier. Maybe, again, like I said, a Louisville, Virginia Tech, or a Georgia Tech. Teams like that are probably your tier 2 in the ACC. So to me, SMU is firmly in the mix again. You mentioned that schedule. Baylor and TCU out of the Big 12. Those aren't going to be easy games, despite being home and away. But they do get the advantage of playing Syracuse and Stanford at home. They're at Clemson. We already talked about that game. Very difficult game for both teams. Frankly, that'll be a much viewed game in mid-October. But they're at Wake Forest. Not difficult. Not totally difficult, but it's still on the road. But they do get to host Miami, which does help. And then the rest of the way, at Boston College, they're at Cal, I think, at the end of the season, and they at least host Louisville. So the schedule is not too daunting for them. I think if you look at maybe a 5-1, 6-0 SMU team, by the time they go to Clemson, you're like, okay, regardless, unless they're blown out by Clemson, I think regardless of the result at that point, you're like, okay, this team will probably be in the ACC mix, if not, trying to get one of those last wild card spots in the playoff again.
Nick Cosco, kind enough to join us, does a great job covering college football on 3 Sports. Rich Quiñones here. We'll take you up to 6 o'clock. We'll get to some comments in a moment. You just mentioned Louisville, and they're plus 750. Again, I go back to the quarterback position, right? Miller Moss. Like, your worst case is this kid never really settles in, plug and play type of quarterback.
Yeah.
And you got a team that's kind of stitched together, very heavy with the portal. It doesn't pan out where in the past it has. And I think they're kind of around 8-4, 7-5. Am I in the ballpark there?
Oh, that's probably right. I think they're going to be very competitive. I mean, I think it'd be crazy to say that this team won't be competitive under Jeff Brom. Of course, you got the quarterback. Now, I know people were talking about Miller Moss just a couple of years ago when Caleb Williams sat out the bowl game for USC, and he throws, what was it, like 6 or 7 touchdowns in the Holiday Bowl a couple of years ago. Then he doesn't have that Heisman type season where, again, Lincoln Riley just coaches Heisman quarterbacks, right? So everyone was naturally expecting, okay, over the course of a full season, Miller Moss is going to be in the Heisman conversation. He wasn't last year. I think he only played 9 games anyway. He had some injuries, so that kind of stunk for him. But he had a decent season last year. Now, you get the plug-and-play quarterback right there. It's a good offense under Jeff Brom. He's a really good coach, really good quarterback coach as well, or at least coaching up the quarterbacks. Looking at the schedule, Eastern Kentucky, James Madison, Bowling Green, you would think that's going to be a 3-0 non-conference slate just right there. They're at Pitt early on, and that's where Pitt does a lot of the damage. I've realized over the course of the last couple of years, whether they're good or, average to above average Q. So when you look at Pittsburgh, you get them on the road at the end of September. Tough game right there for me. If I'm Louisville, they at least, they're going to host Virginia, but they're at Miami. Tough game, home against Boston College. So maybe around, how many games is that? That's 4, 5, 6, 7. You're looking at maybe a 5-2, 4-3 record at that point. At Virginia Tech, not an easy game, but they host Cal. They're going to host Clemson.
Yep.
Tough game, but it's at least at home. And again, we've seen the horrors of Louisville for opposing teams. My Rutgers Scarlet Knights, of course. That place is very difficult. I had to get my Rutgers shot in there, of course. But then they're at SMU. Tough game again. So you're playing Clemson and SMU back to back. Not easy. And then, of course, the rivalry game to end the year against Kentucky. I would favor Louisville, but I think everyone has Mark Stoops in the hot seat this year after a 4-8 campaign, despite the fact he's been there for 11, 12 years at this point, and they've always been a range of 6 to 8 wins outside of a couple years. But Stoops is on the hot seat. This could be a disastrous year for Kentucky, or it could be a very average season for them. So, to me, Louisville probably favored in that game. So in the end, you're probably looking at that 7 to 9 win range. That I would up it to that, but realistically, maybe a 7-8 win team when it's all said and done. Moss, to me, is a good quarterback.
Yeah.
Take the next step with Brom coaching him this year. That's the big question. It does help on defense. At least their leader is back, TJ Quinn, their linebacker. I think he had over 80 tackles last year. He was their leading tackler, so that'll help on the defensive side of things. But to me, Louisville, again, probably in that tier 2 of the ACC. If you want to push them into tier 3, I'm not going to say no. But to me, Louisville is in that next crop of teams where it's like, okay, if things break right, I could see this team being a 9-3 team if there's chaos and they sneak in against a Clemson or Miami in the championship game.
Yeah, 4 true road games, right? At Pitt, Miami, Virginia Tech, and SMU. So if they're going to contend for the ACC, they have to do it away from home. All right, the hoodie. I think this
Your
is
favorite.
going to be.
You couldn't wait to get to this, could you?
I couldn't. I'm going to get to everyone's comments too. I think this is going to be humble pie. I really do. I think that offense is going to struggle. The kids are not going to grasp it. They're not going to respond to Belichick. I know we always talk about, well, look at the name on the back of the jersey, right?
Right.
And now here's the thing. You got a manageable schedule, but you also have 70, 75 new additions. You're talking transfer portal recruiting class. Now I got to get all these kids on the same page, right?
Right.
Again, it's the quarterback position for UNC for the Tar Heels is beyond uncertain. And that would be troublesome. And
Right.
I don't think they can match up offensively with some of these teams that they're going to play, especially with the question marks at the quarterbacking spot. And then the other thing is, here's a guy that I'm asking you to deal with kids, right? I'm
Mm.
asking you to deal with kids and their temperament and their lack of maturity. If things go awry and maybe issues in the locker room or back and forth, the adversity hits. And man, I think 4 wins is where I'm going to cap it. If they got five, if they won five, I would be impressed.
I'm still a little bit more optimistic on what he's going to do this year. I really think 6 wins is a possibility here to get to a bowl game if I'm Bill Belichick in North Carolina. Now, I know everyone wants to go, well, best case scenario, people are buying in. We have no idea what's going on behind the scenes, so secretive. And this is like a breakout, like, and that he turns back the clock and it's all of a sudden it's the 2001 New England Patriots. You know what I mean? So I don't think it's going to be like that. And I would say, to me, you already mentioned the quarterback situation. Gio Lopez, the redshirt sophomore transferred in. He's the likely starter. I know there's not much information out on him right now or how he's doing with North Carolina. In fact, there's not much information about any of these guys because if you look at basically what they have projected on defense, I think aside from 2 guys on defense, they're all transfers. These are all new guys that have to gel together. If there's one thing Belichick knows how to do, and again, he always got, I know he got flack towards the end of his NFL career about his NFL draft evaluations and
Right,
GM role, but obviously he's got
right.
Lombardi for that now at this point for North Carolina. But if there's one thing Belichick could always do, it was coach up a defense of guys you never heard
Yep.
of. And I
And
think,
plug and play. Yep.
yeah,
Yep.
whether or not the teams overall were good or had sustained success, Belichick knew how to get a lot out of guys that you, again, have never heard of or guys that were afterthoughts or outcasts. To me, that to me, and they got some decent guys on defense. Don't get me wrong in terms of what their transfer portal ratings were, but I think to me that defense will be key this year. He's going to leave the offense in the hands of Freddie Kitchens. Whatever you think of Freddie Kitchens, he does have he's got a little juice to him as an offensive coordinator from his time in the NFL. Brown's disaster aside, Kitchens is a smart dude when it comes to coaching up an offense. To me, the offense is the biggest question mark for North Carolina. That defense, I know it's a whole new group. Either everybody graduated, transferred, whatever the case may be. They brought in basically what did I say, 9 to 10 new guys that are
Yes.
projected starters that are brand new and never played for North Carolina before. To me, that's Belichick's bread and butter. I would actually expect that defense to be probably in the upper half of the conference this year when it's all said and done. The offense, Gio Lopez, a quarterback, and they have a veteran guy in Max Johnson who's going into his 6th year. He's dealt with a lot of injuries. He was at LSU, was good, got hurt. Texas A&M, same thing, good, got hurt. Just it hasn't worked out for him. And he only played 1 game last year for North Carolina, and they got hurt again. So they at least have veteran depth. They have a veteran option to turn back to if the Gio Lopez experiment doesn't work out. To me, North Carolina, you're looking at, I would say, best case scenario to me, a 6 or 7 win team. You get to a bowl game, and then we'll see what happens with the future as far as Belichick is concerned. The TCU game, and this might be crazy for me to say. Maybe you'll agree with it. Maybe you'll actually appreciate this. Ironically, it is TCU to open up the season.
Like Colorado.
This could be the year 1 for Deion Sanders in Colorado, where it's like, oh my God, they are saying the college football. We're going to talk about Bill Belichick for 3-4 weeks, and then it's going to hit.
Yeah.
Could I see this team going 4-0 before the bye week? You beat TCU at home, then you're at Charlotte. You beat Richmond, 3-0 right there. They're at UCF now. Yep. I think Scott, Big 12, Scott Frost. Small tangent aside. Is he back in a better spot going back to UCF? Yes. That team going to be good right away? Maybe not. Maybe catch them early. 4-0. I'm just saying.
I get it. You're drawing the comp to what Deion in Colorado did.
And then it's an interesting schedule for North Carolina too, because you go, let's just say for argument's sake,
yeah.
But the hype train is real. They're 4-0. They get a bye. Then you open up October. You have Clemson coming to town.
Yep.
You don't think all eyes are going to be on that game, but what's going to happen? Remember the Colorado-Oregon game? Horrible, right? It's like
you get humbled.
Smack them, right? They're fighting for clicks. We're fighting for wins. I'm not saying Dabo's going to say that about Bill Belichick, of course, but I think a similar situation could play out where it's like North Carolina has all the hype. They get a week off. They get 2 weeks to prepare for Clemson, and all of a sudden they get waxed in Chapel Hill, and they're 4-1. They get another bye week to lick their wounds, which I think actually does help them in the end because they have to go to Cal, then host Virginia, then go at Syracuse the next 3 games after that. But to me, if you're 4-1, and you've already used up your 2 bye weeks right there. If you're 4-1, you got to get 2 wins out of Cal, Virginia, Syracuse, Stanford, Wake Forest, Duke, and NC State.
That's fair. Listen, the buzz is there because the valuation of the university, obviously, when you talk about the football team, it's already went up. They already sold out. We know it's that appeal, right? But I just don't see this being a 2 to 3 year type of investment for Belichick. I think if he can get to 4, 5, 6 wins and they lose a couple heartbreakers and he shows that, hey, he still has it, he's
Yeah.
bolting to the NFL. I really don't. I mean, with all due respect, I don't care what anyone has to say when it comes to that. It's just he realizes that spots are going to open up. And if he can
Yeah.
get himself at a great spot, maybe in a soft division, say like the South, NFC South, who knows, then he can stockpile a couple more wins over two or
I don't know if an NFL team's gonna take a chance on him at this point where
well, why? Based on college though?
but he's been out of the NFL game for a couple of years. And then obviously there was a reason why he interviewed
Hold on a
twice.
second now. Have we not seen coaches go back to
I'm not I,
college
I I'm not saying they haven't. I mean,
and
again,
and
I know Pete Carroll's a
yeah,
slightly different
yeah.
example of that. Now he's back, but a couple years out of it, and I get Pete Carroll is what, the same age or roughly the same age, and we have actual examples of this
Yeah, yeah,
happening. Just to,
yeah.
to me, if this is a total disaster, I have a harder time to believe that an NFL team is going to look at Bill Belichick and say, let's try to run it back where he kind of flamed out in New England at the end, whether it's his fault 100% or not, but he wasn't hired the next cycle for a reason. Had a year off, did TV, was good on TV, but then he got resurrected in college where he didn't get looked at again. So now that's what, 2 years out of the game. Then now you go through this season, you're 3 years out of the NFL, and if it's a good season, I could see it, obviously.
Okay, so let me ask you, going by that theory, so Urban Meyer, great college coach, goes to Jacksonville, it implodes and blows up. Are you going to tell me he can't get a college gig?
If he wanted, but Meyer was already retired though from college for a couple of years.
Yeah, I know. I still maybe
All I want to do on
yeah,
the Urban Meyer point right there, I do want to point out that Urban Meyer is a unique specimen when it comes to that, only because he left Florida citing health issues and mental burnout and whatnot. But then he resurfaces a couple years later to take the Ohio State
yeah.
job, but then when he retired or he left Ohio State, he did the same thing, and then he pops up in Jacksonville. I think Jacksonville was just trying to, you know what, we need a splash. Let's talk to him. And again, that to me is just
I think
organizational incompetence right there. I mean,
man, I'm
I
telling you,
I love Tim Tebow, but Urban Meyer brought in Tim Tebow to become a tight end.
yeah.
And I love Tim
Listen,
Tebow. You know what I mean?
I get it, and I can appreciate and respect what you're saying, and even some of the commenters like Man saying Q keeps saying he's going back to the NFL. Problem is no owners want him. That's at the moment, but there's going to be a team out there.
Well, that was my larger question then when it comes to
Yeah.
for argument's sake, because I think he will be relatively successful here.
Well, what if he goes 8-4?
Well, this is my point.
Yeah.
If he makes a bowl game, it's going to show that he still has it. But at that point, because I'm going off your point now, which is Belichick wants a good situation, right? He wants to be able to because you know how he is. He's
Yeah,
gonna want
but
he's gonna want the most control possible. He wants to hand pick his NFL
I
situation.
get it. But
So to me, what franchises out there, especially the ones that are going to have a chance to have an opening next cycle, which one of those situations is arguably the best for him? And again, I think the one he would want, and I do agree with you for sentimental value, and obviously where he originally wanted to be, is the New York Giants.
it's a giant job.
If that's not open, what then? Especially if he's good here. I mean, again, if he's good, he will get more buy-in from the administration. I'm not saying he's
Well,
going.
that's true, and then that
I'm not saying
justifies
he's automatically stay
yeah,
North
I get
Carolina,
it.
but
I get
if
it.
he wins 6 to 8, I'll use your example. If he's 8-4, they get a pretty good bowl game this year. Let's just say that's the case. He's 8-4. Okay, you play Clemson close,
Right.
whatever. At that point, he already signed a 5-year deal. This is it. Like, how many more years does Belichick have anyway, whether it's college or the NFL? He probably has the length of this contract, whether it's finishing with North
Yeah.
Carolina or going back to the NFL. He's got 5 years max to me left in his coaching career. I know he's one of those guys that'll go to the grave coaching. You know what I mean?
Right.
But
There's kind of like two schools of thoughts with this too, right? When you think about it, because if he does well, look, you bring in 70 new kids. But if he doesn't do well, look, you brought in 70 new kids. Like, it's damned if you do, damned if you don't. And I know what people are saying, apples and oranges. And from where from what I've gathered and surmised, and from what I know from speaking, even with some of former players of Belichick, he wants Shula's record.
Of
He
course.
wants to break that. Now, to your point, and the commenters, is someone going to give him that opportunity? And as some already pointed out, maybe he enjoys it if he wins, or maybe, is there a chance he may tarnish his history with a failed NFL venture? I think his body of work already speaks for itself. Like, if he didn't win a game in 2 seasons in Carolina, does that make him any less of a head coach and what he did in the NFL?
I mean, that's also like using the argument that his head coaching stint with the Cleveland Browns should tarnish his legacy when no one even talks
Yeah, but
about
he
that
still made a
anymore.
playoff 1 year with them.
That's what I'm saying. It wasn't great, and then the team moved, and then it's like using the Jets argument. It's like, well, he spurned the Jets, like
Right.
he spurned a franchise, like, or he was afraid of the Jets, whatever the case may be. It's like using those examples where he wasn't as successful or didn't even coach, obviously. That'll tarnish his legacy. And again, just going back to the point of like if he's successful this year, to me, if this is a disaster, I think he's done. I think North Carolina will ride the wave for as long as he wants. I think
Yeah.
I think if it's
Squeeze a
disastrous,
little juice out of it.
right. I think if it's a disaster in 2025, I don't think he's going back to the NFL. And then it's up to Belichick to say, all right, I'm done after 1 year, or North Carolina will convince him, like, all right, hey, give us like give us another year or two to see if we can make this work, and then we'll see what happens. But if he's good, I do agree with you that NFL teams might give him a second look and be like, maybe he still has it to come back to the pros, and but again, if you go back to the NFL, the only reason why you're bringing Belichick in, the only reason why he's going back to the NFL, and maybe I could be wrong about this. I know he wants Shula's record, but if you're Belichick, why would you go back to the NFL unless you're going to be put in a situation where you're confident enough to chase that record
Mhm.
/ also build a Super Bowl contender where you can win one more Lombardi?
Which
Otherwise you're doing it just to
well,
ride out
here you
ride
go.
out the wave. You know what I
I'll give
mean?
you a scenario. There's already talk in Cleveland how bad they're going to be.
Mm-hmm.
There's already talk in Cleveland that they're not happy. None of these quarterbacks
Yeah.
are the going to be the reason, right? Are
Yeah,
going
I've
to be
already.
the
We've already
Arch.
written about the
So hold on,
speculation where
Arch Manning.
could be Saban, and Arch Manning in Cleveland next year. You know what I mean?
Yeah, could be Belichick and Arch Manning
Could be.
in Cleveland, right? I
Can't
mean,
rule anything out these days.
it's going to be a fascinating watch.
It will be.
He's 73. He's not an old man. I mean, he's not, but maybe a year in college, revitalizes him. And your point, if he does well, there's going to be an owner that's going to fall in love with, oh man, look at this. Belichick comes in and he
Right.
turned it around and he went to college and they won 7 games and everyone loves him. He still has it.
Right.
Let's give him 3-year deal, right?
And again,
Yeah.
I know we've seen crazy things happen where these coaches have 1 year at their respective franchise and are gone. But just to use your examples before, like the NFC South, I don't see anybody leaving after or getting fired after this year. As far as like good situations, the Giants to me is the obvious one because of, again, the previous connection, and if that blows up, he can restart with Jackson Dart at quarterback and remold the franchise for the final 4+ years of his coaching career. But other than the Giants, it's like, I mean,
Well, we tried to do that last season
right,
with the
yeah,
Cowboys.
like
Yeah,
Dallas tried
nuts.
doing this last year, it didn't quite work out, and then they hired from within this year. So I don't think Belichick to me wants to deal with Jerry Jones, especially with Jerry Jones really going off the deep end. It seems like this summer, and then
Yeah, with some of the players and
yeah,
contracts.
right. If you're going to rule out the Giants, like if there's no Giants or Cowboys. I mean, he's not obviously he's not going back to New England. That ship is sailed. They have Mike Vrabel, Mike Vrabel era. But what
I
to
mean,
me,
Chicago. Listen, you don't know what's going to happen in Chicago.
one year though with Ben Johnson, 1 year.
Listen, stranger things have happened sometimes. If it does
No,
not
I already
work
conceded
out,
that
we've seen
point, but
ownerships get rid of guys.
I already conceded that point, but they also have now gone all in on the Ben Johnson and Ryan. I mean, Ryan Poles to me has
Well,
not been a
because
good
they gave
GM,
the
but
GM an extension, which was foolish.
right. I'm not all in on Ryan Poles as the GM, but they are
Yeah.
all in on the Ben Johnson Ryan Poles experiment, and they're going to give Johnson at least 2 to 3 years to figure out Caleb Williams. So
I mean,
intriguing, yes,
the
but
fact
not
that
happening.
we're speculating before one college football
I
game
know,
has been played.
which is why I hate this. I've turned to everything I've ever hated.
Scott says,
Belichick will win 6 games in North Carolina this year. Book it. I'll mark it right now. They will go to a bowl game this year. They will win 6 games.
all right. I hope that check clears like the Colorado and Rutgers check. Mr.
Send me some
Costco, if
Tar Heel
Beck
joke.
takes Miami deep into the college playoffs, is this a case where wins over stats gets you a Heisman?
Could be. It could certainly help because I know he was a candidate last year before the season even started, and of course, that kind of flamed out where he played well, didn't play well, then the injury happened, and he wasn't as explosive stat wise as some of the other guys, of course, or as he was expected to be. So yeah, I mean, wins certainly help. It's been a quarterback award for so long, other than what we saw Travis Hunter last year and Devontae Smith a couple of years ago. It's been mostly a quarterback award. So if you're a veteran quarterback, you've put up big numbers past. To me, yes, he's probably going to be in the conversation very early on. It's whether he can sustain that is another question.
Man says Costco provided more information than I paid for, just like picking up frozen goods from you know where.
That's
Oh,
my job on Wednesdays.
how about this? Here you go. Michael says Rutgers would not want Bill Belichick. Would he
I
be
was thinking
humbled
about
returning to the
it.
NFL? Go ahead.
Not about Belichick, but I was actually thinking about this in my head. I'm just like, Rutgers is probably going to peak as a, like this is the peak right here, right? Like Greg Schiano might have one more good year.
Yep.
Yeah, let me rephrase that. You go back to 06, right? They won 11 games, right? That's considered the peak year of modern day Rutgers football, where they were 11-2 and finished as high as the seventh in the country. That was the peak that they reached. Number 7, right? He came back to say, Rutgers is going to be number 1. I just watched that clip again yesterday. I made a joke yesterday at work. To me, Greg Schiano has, I don't know how many years he has left now. He's no spring chicken, but Greg Schiano, obviously, with the advancements in medical technology and him being, a Jersey dude and an old school Italian, like he's only 59 years old. So like Greg Schiano's going to be there for a long time. But I always think to myself, there has to be a point where Schiano's like, you know what? I got to retire. I got to step away. I don't know how many years he has left, but I mean, it seems like his contract keeps getting extended as long as Rutgers makes bowl games, even in the Big Ten, and they're not reaching that next tier. But to me, it's like he's got one more year to me that will potentially that could say, oh my God, they won 10 games this year, but the schedule is favorable or everything just broke right with a little luck, yada, yada, yada. Not saying they're making the playoff, but it's like, oh my God, Rutgers won 10 games this year. And obviously, if the playoff goes to 16 teams, maybe a 10-win Rutgers team does get to the playoff. But my point is, I was like, I love Fran Brown. Fran Brown coached at Rutgers for a couple of years as an assistant coach, then went to Georgia as an assistant, broke out last year as a head coach for Syracuse. I'm thinking to myself, if Schiano were to lead this team to, I don't know, a decent year this year, another bowl game, but let's just say out of nowhere, you know what? I'm retired. I'm done. Can't do it anymore. Not that Rutgers would go after Bill Belichick. Would they go after another ACC guy in Fran Brown, bringing him back? Fran Brown, to me, is the guy who's winning all these recruiting battles. And he was joking today. He was like, yeah, I still call Will Muschamp down at Georgia. I still call Kirby Smart. And it's like, they don't talk to me as much anymore. It was like, now I'm the competition. I'm recruiting the same guys to come up to upstate New York and not to stay away from Georgia.
Well, that's the thing. Now, as opposed to the kids going out of state, you bring the water to the well. They're going to stay in state.
And I'm telling you, if I'm Rutgers and Schiano walked away tomorrow, the first guy I think I'm calling is Fran Brown. Camden, New Jersey native. He coached at the school already before. He's doing great things at Syracuse right now. Has the Georgia experience. I think my first call would be to Fran Brown. If you want to talk about guys that are bound to get a new job if he's going to keep being successful, Fran Brown. No offense to Syracuse, but he's not staying at Syracuse for long. He will be bound for an SEC or Big Ten job at a certain point.
Ryan is a ACC college football head, and he chimes in on XQ. I can't believe you're doing it, but yes, I'm actually going to agree with you. If you heard, former Ron Rivera said today that he can see the NFL being such a lure back for Belichick that he's one and done. But that's former head coaches, right? Now you got a head coach turned Cal GM Ron Rivera, right? Who not the best head coach, but garners a lot of respect. All I'm saying is that I think if, like, to your Rutgers point, right? If the university does well, and by the way, unrelated, did you see this thing with Phil Murphy signed a law that bars the NCAA and CSC from punishing schools or athletes if a third party, including a related entity, breaks their NIL rules, which is basically now talk about your Rutgers and other institutions in Jersey, competitive advantage.
Yeah, I did see that. I didn't dive too much into the report because we were swamped with the.
Oh,
with
it's
the
juicy.
today,
They circumvent the system, baby.
Right, and I mean, it is fascinating considering that, it seems like Rutgers might have the advantage at one point, but they have no AD, and I think I saw I think, an old, not colleague, but, friend of the program, we'll call him James Cratchit, who's right for NJ.com, and he covered Rutgers and the
Yeah,
Giants for a
long
while,
time.
and I forget where he is now, but he always chimes in on some college football takes once in a while on Twitter, and I saw something, it was like, it is very ironic that Rutgers is, or not Rutgers, but like New Jersey now has the ability to basically circumvent the NCAA
Yep,
while still being a part of the NCAA. So you're
which
kind of
makes no
shooting,
sense.
yeah, you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot. And I'm
Yep.
paraphrasing his take, but it is fascinating. So I am interested to see how that plays out and if other states are going to follow with their governors signing the same things in the law. Because again, there's no concrete rules or blanket rule for and when it comes to name, image, and likeness nationwide or at least federally. So it is fascinating to say the least.
I just think yeah, you are. I mean, you're not even circumventing the rules. You're basically jumping over them. Like
Yeah.
you're not even. I don't know. I think this leaves a lot of interpret like open to interpretation. Like a lot of people would sit there and say, does Rutgers have did they had or did they have a deal with an AD who basically
They
said
o
no
they
to the
offered him the
NIL?
job and he turned it down, and his name is now escaping me, but I know he was an alum of the school. He had experience with dealing with, professional sports and, other big businesses, and again, I'm giving you, like, the bare cliff notes
Was
right
it
now.
Ryan Passeri?
No, he was the interim AD, and he
Okay,
for, a D I think it's a D2 or D3 school, where
okay,
he's now the
okay.
permanent AD down there, like a good D like a really good D2 or D3 school, but he was well respected, I think, but just because if you're going to do a nationwide search and at that point it's like you don't want to hire from within and just promote him even though to me he did a good job in pretty much doing damage control all year with
Yeah.
the Pat Hobbs resignation out of nowhere, scandal aside, you really couldn't promote him. If they were going to promote him to permanent AD, they would have done it a lot earlier. I think he was just kind of holding down the job. And I'll give a tip of the cap to my old classmate, actually, Brian Fonseca, who's on the Rutgers beat for NJ Advanced Media. He's like, I'm pretty sure this is unprecedented. There's an interim AD for the interim AD at Rutgers, and I'm like, of
Right,
course, that's just typical Rutgers. He's the interim athletic director,
right.
whoever it is now. I forget off the top of my head.
Apparently on a Wednesday, people think I'm not reading the room. I'm not really sure how that's possible. I am reading the room. Rutgers would have to go after another big time coach. If Shiano left a must, Brown is a good call after Shiano. Yeah, I was reading the room. I don't know if I switched gears a little bit. We went pretty much through ACC. We got on to Belichick, then connected
I can
dots
only
to the
talk so
NFL.
much about Stanford, although I will give a little
Yeah.
shout out to Andrew Luck, who I think is going to be a fantastic GM. And I don't know how interim coach Frank Reich's going to work out this year, but I do think Andrew Luck is going to make a huge difference with Stanford being the GM out there. And he already you talk about jokes, and Fran Brown already had a great Andrew Luck story, which I wrote about today, which was that Andrew Luck actually beat him out for a recruit.
Mhm.
He was like, well, "Why go to Syracuse when you can come to Stanford?" And and then the kid called Fran Brown. And he's like, "All right, I'll holler at you later. See you.
Who,
Have a nice
who,
life." Essentially,
who do you like winning before I let you get out of the ACC? Who is your favorite?
to win the ACC, I got Clemson. So I'll go back to my original point.
Yeah.
Clemson, 11 or 12 win team. They have all the pieces back. It's kind of like Penn State over in the Big Ten. They're bringing everything back. They're on the national title shortlist, I would say. Cade Klubnik at quarterback. You got 2 first-round picks on the defensive line. You got good wide receivers, got a good back, got a great coach in Dabo Swinney who's done it twice already, winning the national title. Won the ACC last year. I think it just sets up for them, especially with a opening weekend win over LSU. And again, I know we talked about it before. Same goes for LSU on the flip side. But if Clemson comes out firing, beats LSU, you're gonna see. All right, Clemson probably gonna be a lot of people's post week 1 national title favorite at that point if they come out and smack LSU a little bit. So Clemson to me, ACC favorite. Miami is my second team. I would say based on what we see on paper, and then I would go in the not an exact order, but the SMU's, Louisville's, and Georgia Tech's, and then I'll do a wait and see approach on Virginia Tech, and obviously a gigantic wait and see approach on Florida State.
I do have to let you out on this. Did you see the nonsense with this friggin' little league crap in New Jersey with this kid who got suspended for flipping the bat?
No, I didn't. What happened?
Oh my God, are you kidding me? So the kid, I think playing for Haddonfield, flipped the bat, and the umpires basically after a home run, right? He did,
Right.
the little flip, right? He got a little juice, and the umpires ejected him, and now the kid basically can't play in the championship, like in
Mhm.
the playoffs, and they're trying to get like a mandated court order. Like the kid's 12 years
Oh,
old.
I'm watching the video right now.
Yeah, he gave a like a Batista. So he tossed the bat, he celebrated the home run. The game was a blowout. I think it was like 9-10 nothing. The umpire ejected him and it earned him a one-game suspension. He was barred from competing in the New Jersey Little League State Tournament Finals this coming Thursday. Are you kidding me with
That
this
is
nonsense?
unbelievable. This is on ESPN we see this. This is
But
unbelievable.
that's what I'm saying. Everything is glorified on social media. The kid's 12 years old. I mean, you can't have fun. You flip the
I
bat.
just
Like,
saw a
what does that
video
mean? The
and,
pitcher's going to go in depression?
I just saw a video and Darren Rovell tweeted out because it was embedded in the Yahoo story. It's actually it's side by side, or a top and bottom
Yeah,
video. There's
yeah.
a side by side video comparison of the kid Marco Rocco who just got suspended
Yep.
for his bat flip, and they show an old school clip when Todd Frazier was in Little League, and he
That's
did
what I'm
the same
saying, man. The
exact bat
hypocrisy.
flip. Oh, that's absurd. Oh my god, that's terrible. That's
Yeah,
awful.
it's
I feel
horrible.
bad for the
Well,
kid. Yeah, he didn't
yeah,
do anything wrong.
exactly. I mean, it's
Isn't it funny? And I don't want to go. I'm going to be here for another 2 hours if I talk about this. But isn't it funny how you and I are, you and I are big baseball fans, and how Major League Baseball is trying to go, is trying to hit that youth movement in terms of
right,
engagement on social media and trying to capture new audiences with new rules, bigger pushes on social media, experimentation a little bit. All these kids now that are between the ages of 9 and 14, all they see what's glorified are these awesome let the
correct,
players be players
correct,
moments where
correct,
they're celebrating the bat flips, and we're trying to get rid of some of the unwritten rules in
right. And they're
baseball, the old
emulating what
mentality,
the
which is
players
good
are
to me.
doing.
That's good. Get rid of
Yeah.
some of that stuff. I want to see the excitement. This kid does it, and it's like you're
Yeah.
suspended.
There's a difference between emulating and, looking up to these players as role models, but then, you see, say in like youth basketball, some of the crap some of these kids pull, I blame the parents with the way they hot dog and
Yeah,
bounce
well,
the ball off the
basketball to me
players.
is a whole other animal, and I don't want to dive into that. But
No, no, no. I
yeah,
know what you're saying. I'll dive into it, but I know what you're saying. I just think it's like, right, if we're going to keep pushing it on social and we want these kids now to be younger fans and the kid's happy and he flips the bat, what's like,
why
I mean, come on,
why are
man.
you punishing him for that? And I'm watching the video again. He hit a bomb. That thing was
Yeah,
like I don't know where that Little League game was played. I know it's from the one of the New
yeah,
Jersey teams, so I don't know where that game was necessarily played. They're not in the finals yet, but that ball was hit into the next state over. I mean, he crushed that ball.
yeah.
Let him flip the bat. Who cares?
I'm gonna need you. I'm gonna need you to actually intervene with this now before, as I say, I let you get out of here. So yes, I said last week I had a prior engagement tomorrow.
Yes,
I'm sorry, yesterday. I
yes.
mentioned it on Wednesday show, on Thursday show, on Friday show, and I mentioned it on Monday show. So this is the crap that I got to deal with right now. That's for Read the Room Tuesday, which Q conveniently skipped yesterday. Okay, the madman's thinking it over. I think we should start calling him Convenient Q. Now, do you recall any time on everyone's having got him. Here we go on a Woosah Wednesday. Do you recall any time when our paths were down the dial? I think I missed in 3+ years on the air, one travel and then 2 shows for personal reasons, which you and I know of. But
Mhm.
other than that, I mean, the opposite of me just not even showing up. I'm always there. It's workman like hours, is it not? It's lunch pail.
I mean,
It's
unless you're changing formats, if we're gonna go
it,
the old school FM dial, the
it
station
speaks
changing
for
format.
itself.
Yeah, yeah. Unless you're changing formats or
That's
changing
that's
stations, or
that's that's what I'm saying. They
well,
they they just
I
don't
mean,
know. They don't know.
you
And
might
it
call me
annoys
one day
them.
and just be like, "Hey, listen, I'm
Yeah.
going back from 5 days a week to 3 days a week, so
Yeah, or
get
I'm
back to
take
schedule.
or
I'm going back
right,
to
or a different
25
time slot, but I'm
Like,
here.
come
I'm
on.
in the trenches. I'm running towards a fire, and this is what happens. I tell them ahead of
I mean, it'd
time.
be hard for you to miss your show at this point. That's your home studio back there. I
That's
could
it.
recognize that background from a hole in the wall back there. You're not gonna. What are you gonna hit? What are you hit? You gonna hit traffic on your way to the studio?
No, but I made the exactly right. I'm gonna now it's lit. No, I said it last week. I literally said it on Friday. A reminder: back in the saddle Monday, on the road on Tuesday. This is what I'm saying. I'm not even gonna. I'm not even gonna. I might. I can flash up a comment if you already saw it to make you laugh.
Well, I mean, I'm in the back end of the studio with you. I can
Yeah.
see this. So. To
Oh,
answer the
yeah, we're not even
question,
gonna touch that.
yeah,
Thank you, Michael.
yes and no. I was working, so I was working. I was working. I was in fact paid.
All right, let's not. Hey, listen, I don't want to be the cause of you burning any more
No, no, no,
bridges that have been flamed on.
that's no.
All right, brother. You got
I was working. I was working. I'll leave it at that. I was working.
you dropping any more of the cow pods, cow live stuff?
I might actually drop another coach one. We're pretty much wrapped up with the coaches right now, and I again appreciate all to the high school coaches for those who are around in the South Jersey area. Appreciate all the coaches hopping on the show this summer, preview the season, which is a month away already, which is kind of crazy. Pleasantville just hired their new head coach. Malachi Timberlake was the coach the last 3 years. Great dude. I figured there was something going on. I didn't really hear from him this summer, so change over there. He's moving on to a new opportunity, and they did just hire a new head coach. So might try to get in touch with him and see what we could do. Give Pleasantville a little shine this year going to 2025. And my guy Ish Sal, who helps run the Axe Sports Group, a big NIL outlet now for these athletes in this area and now nationwide. So might try to get him on the show in the next couple of weeks as well as we lead up the football season. Of course, Chuck Smith show is back to cover mainland football week to week. So we'll hit that probably about mid-August before the high school season opener. August 28th, I believe, is the opening date, which is kind of crazy if you ask me. But it's almost the end of July, so I feel like we just started summer, but now I have to worry about high school football in a little bit more than a month.
Yeah, and we're gonna shed a little light on that on our Football Fridays as well, along with some NFL. And your picks as always. All right, brother. I greatly appreciate you hanging for as long as you haven't had to deal with this nonsense on a Wednesday.
Conversation can't get cut off there. We have to.
No, absolutely.
Gotta hit all angles of the conversation, even the ones that are off the record.
This is true. All right, brother. I appreciate you, Nick. Thank you, pal.
Thanks, Q.
All right, there you have it, my guy Nick Costco. By the way, you know what's funny? Q says he had a prior engagement, comes back with a tan. First of all, my skin's always like this. That's number one. Number two, I live pretty much, near the beach. That's number two. And number three is I posted photos of the engagement last night. What are we doing? There's no conspiracy. There's none. Look, I even showed you product. 3 Brooks last night. They were there. 3 Brooks. Bourbon and whiskey, man. They were at the event. They were sponsoring the event. They had product placement. And Get Ready with Tea, which was a big, big seller. I mean, I don't know. I think it's absurd. And if you notice, too, I haven't even had the woosah moment. That's the other thing. As Michael brilliantly pointed out, I run to the fire, period. Yes, it's a woosah olive complexion Wednesday. On that note, my goodness, I am definitely taking a quick time out. All right, 513, excellent stuff from Costco. He always provides those great nuggets. Got a lot of Eagles comments coming in. Yeah, I definitely, I do want to hear from the Eagles fans with this, we're not defending champs. We don't want that moniker. We don't want that label. It's just absolutely goofy talk. Got some hoodie Belichick, also LeBron hitting the juice. So we will get into that as well. Keep it locked in. We will take it up to 6 o'clock right here on a Woosah Wednesday edition, Middays with Q. And of course on X, IG. And also I'm telling you right now, there is nothing. I don't get it. There is absolutely nothing going on. There's nothing, there's no conspiracy. There's no hiding from the audience, right? We are fully transparent on the air, period. If I had a prior engagement, which I also blasted out on social media, which takes time to get in the car, prep, grab your gear, all the stuff, drive, show up, set up, break down, do the show, come back. Those are hours, man. Those are hours. So I got to be honest, I'm a little disappointed and what's going on right now. No, look, you guys just time me out. All right, quick timeout. We will come back on the other side, and we'll see what you guys have to say before we get out of here at 6.
Hidden in an abandoned campground in South Jersey lies a mystical encounter with brews and spirits, where bonfires burn, shadows dance, and flavor favors the bold. Ghosts, ghouls, goblins, grown-ups, it's time to reclaim Halloween. This is Witchcraft, October 10th and 11th. For tickets and information, visit witchcraftnj.com.
This is what the Down Beach Seafood Fest is all about. It's about community, it's about friends, it's about culture, right? The food culture in Atlantic County is rich.
Hi, I'm Bruce Pascoe. I'm very fortunate. Years ago, I found something that I genuinely like to do, and it's something that helps other people. What I do is help people transition from traditional health insurance into Medicare. I've been doing it here in Atlantic County for more than 20 years. If you're getting ready for Medicare, call me for a free consultation. 609-484-9800.
All right, we'll take you up to 6. Great stuff from Costco. Let's let's see what you have to say. Miguel, prior engagement. No, we already got that one. De facto thinks conspiracy. That's not happening. We don't do that. My man Vince, refresh from Puerto Rico. What's up, peeps? Long day at work. But you're making the money, right? Need some laughs. Oh, you got it. Now you're sucking up to the corporate CEO. There's absolutely no sucking up on anything. And there's absolutely nothing that's going astray or weary at all. Photo session with models on the beach. I mean, that's every man's kind of a dream, is it not? But no, that did not hurt. That did not happen. That was a pretty good spot last night. Joe's Surf Shack in Belmar, which is the other Belmar. By the way, Matty Ice chiming in. Q, I can't believe you're actually going to be full on piss and vinegar. Why? Because one Eagles player basically said they're not defending anything. My team is locked and loaded for a repeat. Get over it. It's so annoying. It's July 23rd, and I'm already annoyed by the Eagles fan. Period. You won the Super Bowl. You're allowed to sit there and say, well, yeah, we know people are going to gun after us. We are the defending Super Bowl champs, are we not? Kevin chimes in. Q, honestly, you got to give me your takes. What do you think? Wilson, is he going to last 17 weeks? No, I don't believe that. I think the Giants are set up to fail. I said this. That's one of the reasons I've kind of subconsciously maybe are trying to connect the dots with the hoodie down the road. But when you have a GM and a head coach that are on one-year deals, they're lame ducks. Brian Daboll is going to say Russell Wilson's a starter. I mean, and it's just, let's not act surprised here. But the test is going to come 3 weeks in. If Russell Wilson sacked 15 times in 3 games and they're 0-3, you might see a very quick change. And I hope, I'm very critical of Russ. I say let him cook, let him marinate, let him sit there and saute. The head coach has to say that in July. Why? Because you don't want to be a lame duck head coach walking into a season with any type of question marks or any type of controversies. Like, it's different with other teams where you already know who the starter is. But the Giants decided we're going to bring in Russ Wilson. We're drafting the kid. We're going to bring in Jameis Winston. You knew Russell Wilson was going to get the rep, so it's not going to change any type of approach. But I think Daboll said that because let's just say if Winston was throwing the ball well or Dart started to get some reps and was throwing the ball well, even though I saw him on 11-11, his first pass, I think, was a pick six, but that's okay. Or on 7-on-7, whatever the hell the drills are. Point is, you're going to get the New York media, the Giant beat reporters who love to friggin' just stir the pot. What are you thinking of Dart? What are you thinking of the kid? What are you thinking of this? What are you thinking of that? You're going to take reps away. Is there a chance he can start? And Brian Daboll understands he's under an enormous amount of pressure. He's coaching for his life right now, his career. That's it. That's it. So you're not going to take that shot. You're not going to take a chance and leave it open. You're not. I know what it was. Uh-oh. Hold on. What do we got here? That, again, is not accurate. But I appreciate you saying B team midday engagement on the deck. No, not happening. But so the time, hold on, man. Let's break this down for a second. That's not accurate, what you're saying. It's not factual. But what I will say is the way you broke it down actually almost makes sense, because time slot, that is B team-ish as opposed to the A team. If we're talking, 11 to 12, 11 to 1, well, we kind of know it's the C team. I think right church, wrong pew for you. Q, how soon should Dart get his shot? Great question, Vince. Great question. I think it just depends on how poorly the Giants play out of the gate. I really do. Russell Wilson, he didn't play that bad last season with Pittsburgh. I mean, he didn't. He had his moments. He still threw close to 20 touchdowns. He had a couple picks. He got sacked a lot. That was a problem. He got sacked 34, 35 times. I don't trust the Giant offensive line. He's going to have to get the ball out of his hands fast. The offensive line has to come together. They got to run the football. I think you're looking at, if Russell Wilson has a couple games where he's 18 of 28 for a $196 and a touchdown and no picks, and they win a couple games, I say this all the time. General managers and GMs don't want to lose football games. They don't. This idea of the tanking in the NFL, it's not true. It's not. It just is not. Yeah, your franchise quarterback goes down. You got to rely on the backup in week 2. You're going to have a bad season. So let's just throw by definition, let's just throw the term tanking out there. But Daboll also understands he can ill afford to lose games, if that makes sense. So if Russell Wilson at this moment gives the Giants the best chance to win some games, he's out there. If there's a 3-game stretch or a 4-game stretch, let's say the Giants go 1-2. They split between Washington or Dallas. That's your best case, because they're not going to be Kansas City. They start the season 1-2. They lose to the Chargers. They're 1-3. They beat the Saints on the road. Now you're 2-3. But now you've got the Eagles, Denver, and the Eagles. Those are losses. So at 2-6, that's kind of where I bookmarked it. Like I can see, I think I mentioned this. I can see Dart starting sometime late October, early November. And they're not going to, I would be shocked. You don't start a rookie midseason on the road in a hostile environment. So let's just wipe away the Philadelphia Eagles, October 26th. We know the Giants seasons are always done before Halloween. That leaves what? First week in November against San Francisco at home, right? Start him at home. You want that home crowd there. If it was an Eagles game at home, they were going to travel, but the fans are, but I still believe that's the spot. As soon as Russell Wilson goes, 13 of 36 for $123 and 3 picks, that's going to be it. Because Brian Daboll understands he does not have any type of margin forever. And any coach will tell you that. Look at Cleveland. Look at Indianapolis. I mean, think about that situation right now. I know we talked a little bit about it last week. I'm telling you, they need to go and get another backup. Tennessee needs to go and get another backup. It's one of the reasons with Lloyd last week. I said, you got a team, and Howie, I'm talking to you right now, in the Cleveland Browns that have 5 quarterbacks on the roster. We'll say 4. We'll forget about Deshaun Watson. You have to make a move for one of those guys. Sit, start, trade, Cleveland Browns quarterback room, go. I don't know where this Kenny Pickett buzz is coming from. I mean, the head coach absolutely loves Kenny Pickett. I saw enough of this kid with the Steelers. I saw enough of this kid in college, and even with the cup of coffee with the Eagles. I don't think he can play. I don't. I can't speak to the other two. I can't. If I'm going by what Sanders did in college, maybe they give him a shot. But again, it goes to what I said. Coaches don't want to start the season off with losses, because when they do that, they're on the hot seat, especially when you already know that the seat is getting hot. So if you kind of back me in a corner right now, I almost believe Flacco gets the start here. I really do. I believe Flacco gets to start, because you've got and I don't know what the hell they're going to do with Deshaun Watson. And that's why everyone's already starting to say, okay, here we go. You got a head coach that's on the hot seat. You're not sold on any quarterback. Have a bad year. I'm not going to say tank, but then make the push for Arch Manning, right? Saban's name's been floated out there. The hoodie's name will be floated out there. So I can't, you're backing me in a corner. I think Flacco starts. I think Pickett backs him up. And then, you throw a dart at who's on the depth chart, when you start to talk about the 3rd string and the 4th string. Now, I will say this, if you're a Cleveland fan, there's actually there's a positive to this. There is. Doesn't work out with Flacco, you bench him. Go to Pickett, doesn't work out, you bench him. Like, you still try to figure it out during the season, because it's going to be a lost year. I believe you have to see if Gabriel or Sanders can play. I believe that. I don't care if one's a 3rd round draft pick and another's a 4th round draft pick. Just look at what they did during the draft. Look at all the nonsense that they went through. I mean, everyone was questioning, why'd you draft a quarterback in the 3rd round, right? And then you turn around and you drafted a quarterback in the 5th round. Like, what's the rhyme or reason? What are we doing here? That's very unconventional. It's not, it's not on course of what franchises do, but they need a quarterback. So Flacco can win you a couple games, but you're not going to go anywhere. Pickett maybe comes in, as de facto said, a plucky backup at best, and he calms the waters for a game or two if Flacco's benched or hurt. But eventually, they're going to want to see what Gabriel and or Sanders has. And they open up against Cincinnati. That's a tough spot. Then they have to go on the road against Baltimore, then Green Bay, the Lions, the Vikings. So you're going to see early on, if they're 0-2 and Flacco looks like a statue and he's getting banged up, he's pretty much going to get benched. He's going to get benched, and then they're going to have to decide who they're going to go with. I'm not a fan of Pickett. That's a bad spot to be in, to be honest. Here you go. Browns will release 2 or trade 1. Release 1. Sanders, Gabriel are safe. Watson is 2. Browns will release 2 or trade 1. Release 1. So, Scott, you are a diehard Browns fan. I said this to Lloyd, I think a month or so ago. I said it wouldn't shock me if they released Sanders. And he pushed back and he said Sanders is going to start. If you recall, though, he pivoted and he said he believes that it might be Pickett who gets week one start. Stefanski is trying to save his job, and the best way to do that is to play the young players free pass. Ooh, if we tank and he's fired, we still get the pick to possibly get Arch Manning. See, I don't necessarily. I know where you're thinking with this, but your best bet, if your job is on. Okay, so stay with me for a minute. Take that comment and your line of thinking. It's the same thing in New York, but yet Daboll is going with the proven veteran in Russell Wilson. I think Stefanski, even he knows his job is on the line. Wouldn't you assume he's got to go with the proven vet to start? And then if it doesn't work out, go to the young kids, go to the rookies. Because if you start with the rooks, then all of a sudden ownership is like, well, wait a second. Do you really believe they give us the best chance to win? Now you're kind of looking for that free hall pass. And it doesn't work like that. I think if anything, it'll be Flacco or Pickett. If they falter, if they fail, then you go to that third string quarterback. I even suggested if you're really desperate, because that quarterbacking room is a mess. If you cut Sanders and or the kid Gabriel, if you start Flacco, then I'm almost thinking call the Giants and make a move for Winston. If you're really trying to save your job and win games, doesn't that make sense? There's a couple teams like that. The Colts, I believe the Colts are kind of in that same boat. I really do. I can see Daniel Jones winning the starting job with the Indianapolis Colts. I can see Daniel Jones starting for the Colts week one. And it's not as shocking as people might think. You're going to see at home against Miami, then at home against Denver, the Titans, the Rams. If they go 2-2 and he's playing well, Anthony Richardson is not getting on the field for a while. He's not, and he's injury prone. And if he was healthy, if Daniel Jones flat out beat him, that's a proven veteran who's won before, who's won a playoff game, which carries a lot of weight in the NFL. I'm sorry. Doesn't matter if you're good or you stink. You win a playoff game on the road, that carries weight with franchises. And I believe the Indianapolis Brass is thinking, start DJ, start Nichols, get Jones out there. And if it doesn't work out, it's a very, very low risk, possibly high reward, no harm, no foul. We still have Anthony Richardson. Now, you benched a kid. Does that shake up his confidence? You got a young kid. He's only 23. I mean, but he is also a first-round draft pick, top 5. And this is going to be his third season, but he's shown he's injury prone. And as we talked about the other day, what's your best asset? It's your availability. It's your availability. Can we talk Arch, the guy willingly sat out for 2 years just to enjoy his college experience? Why in the world does everyone just assume he's declaring for the draft after the season? I think it is inevitable that Arch Manning is coming out. I really do. I think if you flip the dial or listen to satellite and listen to some different markets and other stations, and I got this, from a couple guys I know at HIO in Ohio when I had my little cup of coffee doing radio in Cleveland, some guys that are covering the Browns. I'll try to get one of these guys on. I know they're very busy, but one of my buddies, he's an anchor up there, and he basically said that the Browns front offense, they're salivating over Arch Manning. They're salivating over this kid. So maybe there was a method to their madness in drafting who they drafted. We're not going to win. We're going to jettison the rookies. All right, we gave the young kids an opportunity. Now they're experimental quarterbacks. And listen, they've got the assets, do they not? I mean, you hold 2 first-round picks. So landing Arch Manning is, I think, it's not off the table. It's not. These guys don't want to lose games. They don't want to lose games. Now, I can't see in the future that's true, but I highly doubt having Flacco and Pickett equals more than 5 wins. And speaking as a Cleveland Browns fan, we know 3 to 5 victories isn't going to cut it. So just play the young guys. So I get it. And that's a very fair point because as a fan, I would think the same way. Like, start the young guys. Like, what are we doing here? Like, if the Giants are 1-5, I don't see any point of throwing Winston and or Russell Wilson out there. It just makes no sense. I want to see what this quarterback has. I want to see because if he doesn't have it in 10 games, see, the other thing is it fair to also look at a quarterback and say, okay, I'm only going to give you the last 4 or 5 games of the NFL season? I mean, you're building on that momentum going into year number 2, or really getting a full year. Eagles did it with Jalen Hurts, and then obviously became uh, the encumbered starter, and obviously that's worked out for him. But I think some of these, I think the Colts, the Browns, the Giants, when your quarterback situation is in flux and you really don't know what direction you're going, that's not good. And that's when head coaches and that's when GMs lose their job. And to Vince's point with Arch Manning, do I want to see more from this kid? Yeah, I do. I do. I think a lot of it is he's 21 and his last name is Manning. I'm not going to sit here and tell you the kid can't play, but I want to see more. We can connect the dots all we want and speculate and have our own theories. And, you get former coaches, they want to compare these guys. And, Mac Brown's already, comparing Arch Manning to all these legends and this and that. And, I think he mentioned, Vince Young, and Vince Young was a hell of a college quarterback. I think we need to kind of pump the brakes a little bit, right? I think you have to temper expectations and enthusiasm sometimes. I really do. Because, like I said, everyone's going to have an eye on this kid. Everyone is going to watch when the season opens up. And quite frankly, if you haven't looked at the schedule, go see who Texas opens up against. So we're either going to come on the air on Monday and sit there and say, you know what, man, this kid, he's got something. I mean, can you believe that? How about that win against that team? Or we're going to turn around and we're going to say, what, man, he got humbled. Texas goes on the road to open up the season. He goes 30 of 35 for 388 for 4 touchdowns, and they beat friggin' Ohio State. The buzz is going to go off the charts. But if he goes on the road and throws 3 picks and has a couple fumbles and the game's too fast, then guess what happens? The buzz isn't going to go off the chart. Everyone's going to start saying, this kid's not ready. No, you're going to say this kid's a top overall draft. Like, he's in a no-win spot to start the season, right? He is. Man got a bail. All right. Hey, listen, it's 5:38, brother. I appreciate the fact that you hung with me for an hour and 40 minutes. You do what you have to do. I would imagine right now, 5:30, they're changing over. Probably different set. So if you get there by 6, that's still right around the B team-ish. I think you'll be okay. How many games do you give Russell Wilson playing poorly before you want Dart in queue? I will say, because I'm so tired of the friggin' losing and I'm ready to move past Dayball and Shane, I will give Russell Wilson, because he's a Hall of Fame quarterback, I will do him this service. I will give him 4 games. I will give him 4 games. Now, that might not be fair because it's the Commanders, Cowboys, Chiefs, and Chargers, but I will give him 4 games. And then, you make the decision. But I don't know if they want to start a kid on the road. Can you get away with it maybe against the Saints? Yeah. You're not starting them on the road against the friggin' Philadelphia Eagles in a couple weeks after that game. So I say 4 to 5 games for Russell Wilson. My nightmare scenario is smoke and mirrors. Russell Wilson goes 20 of 288, 265, a couple touchdowns. They beat Washington or Dallas. They play really competitive against Kansas City, but lose on a last-second field goal. They beat the Chargers, and they beat the Saints, and they're 3-2. Now, all of a sudden, here we go. You're 3-2, and you're going into that game against the Philadelphia Eagles, and Russell Wilson looks like he's turned back the clock. It's not about Russell Wilson. My thing is, ownership made the wrong decision when they didn't move past Brian Daboll and Joe Shane. So as we like to say, it's smoke and mirrors now. If they go 4-2, 5-3, hell, they win 6 games, and they're competitive, and Wilson starts 12-13. Hey, let's run it back with Russell. You can't do that. You can't. You can't do that. Now, they drafted this kid 3 or 4 games for Russell Wilson. See what he has. If it doesn't work out, they're going to be out anyway. And my, not dilemma, but what aggravates me as a fan at times, and you guys have mentioned it and pointed it out, why should I give a head coach a pass because you're throwing a rookie out there? Like, to me, that's not giving him a pass. That's saving his ass. That's for a guy like Brian Daboll and/or Stefanski to turn around and be like, well, wait a second. You wanted me to throw the kid out there. It's growing pains. No. I don't subscribe to that theory at all. I think that's it's a misconception and how we view it. Like, you're in the locker room, players want the best player out there. Players don't care if it's a rookie, a journeyman, or a veteran. If that quarterback gives them the best chance of winning, they want him out. They don't. You listen. You can sit there and say, "Oh, they play for this guy." They play for the money, their contracts, their incentives to win. So, like in Cleveland, if they believe Flacco gives them the best chance of winning, he gets a start. In New York, if they believe that Russell Wilson gets them the best chance of winning, he gets a start. In Indianapolis, if you go with Daniel Jones because they believe he can run the offense better than Anthony Richardson, he gets a start. And you're right, it's not fair. Oh, no, it is fair. I'm sorry. Yeah, I was going to say it's not fair for you because I feel bad for the Browns fan. I do. Texas lost a lot of talent on offense. I get they're loaded, but they have very little experience. If they go 7-4, how does that make him number one after one or starting? Remember, in this case, and it pains me to say this, if they go 7-4, 8-3, they win a bowl game, and he puts up really sick numbers, he's going number one. He's going number one. Unless you have a quarterback that is a dark horse quarterback that comes out of nowhere. And Costco and I have talked a little bit about those said quarterbacks. But right now, it seems almost inevitable that he's on the radar of a team like the Cleveland Browns. It almost makes sense to me, right? You almost like put the pieces together. It was kind of different, right? Sanders was everyone was talking about Sanders. He can be the best quarterback in the draft. Top 5, definitely top 10. Then the stock started to draft, and then we saw Ward. And remember, too, we were all like, I can't believe he's not playing. He's sitting out the second. None of that affected his draft status. None of it did. If you can play, you can play. If you can play, you can play. And I think Cleveland's going to be right there for, the shot at number one. Now, could the kid from Clemson, the kid Klubnik, how about the kid from South Carolina, the kid Lenora Sellers? They're high on him. I'm not a fan of the kid from Penn State. I don't like him at all. You got the kid from LSU, and then Arch Manning. And I think there's projections, and I need more, obviously, I need a body of work. You can't give me 2 starts, right? I can't base drafting a quarterback who had 2 starts and 95 passing attempts. I can't. But I think a little bit of the Manning name, the traits, the glimpses that you kind of saw, I got to see it throughout a season. Hell, he goes on the road and they beat Ohio State and they win 7, 8 games. I'll be a believer. I will. But I also think there's other quarterbacks that will have an opportunity to make their case as well. I gave you 2 or 3 of them. I think this kid from Clemson um, is going to be a hell of a quarterback. I really do. He made a jump. I mean, you talk about leaps and bounds. He made a jump when he was a junior. He threw for 3,700 yards, 40 touchdowns, I think 6 picks. He was like ridiculous to close out the season. He really was. And he had a big time game, 336, 3 touchdowns against Texas. So, a lot of it too that we always forget. I do see craziness. I do. Sanders started 4 years. Arch will start 1. Both have Hall of Fame names. One is white, one is not. You tell me what's missing. I don't play the race card with that, Vince. I don't. Remember, Sanders rubbed people the wrong way. But why don't we want to talk about that? He rubbed people the wrong way. It's not a black or white thing. It's not. It's not a black or white thing. It isn't. You want to make it out to be a black or white thing. That's fine. But I don't believe that's the case. I'm basically saying he's going to get a full season. Arch Manning is under his belt. And yeah, when, Sanders is in Jackson State, puts up the numbers, Colorado, but we also saw him struggle a little bit at times. He rubbed people, if you ask any NFL pundit, he rubbed people the wrong way with the pre-draft, the interview process, what he was blowing off, what he wasn't blowing off. GMs catch wind of that. They catch wind of that. And then your draft falls. Whether you guys think it's fair or foul, it's just how it works in the NFL. If you interview poorly and you have red flags or you've got an attitude or you come off a certain way, I don't care how good you think you are or how good you might be, GMs don't play that game because their whole livelihood is vested on making the right pick. They need to know they have to get it right. They have to get it right. And if they don't, they're going to be out of a job. So obviously, something about this kid rubbed them the wrong way. And he fell big time. Now, if he goes out and he gets an opportunity to start and he plays well, then that will silence the critics. But if he goes out and he has an opportunity, the game's too fast and he struggles and it doesn't work out, then we are allowed to criticize him. And I don't want to hear this while he plays for the Cleveland Browns. I don't care if he played for the Giants. I would still get on him. If you struggle, you struggle. There's also variables, right? Extraneous variables, factors that are involved in that. If this kid's running for his life, sure, you can sit there and say it's also on the offensive line. But sometimes if the game's too fast, the game's too fast. Like personally, I actually want to see him start. I want to see if he can play in the NFL. Because as you guys know, I went on the record and said it wouldn't shock me if Cleveland cut him. Like, I just didn't see that transition from college to the pros. And by the way, I'm not saying the same thing with Arch because I haven't watched. The kid had 2 starts. How can you sit there and make an assessment on him? I'd have to go and watch every single solitary snap he takes this season for Texas. I'm not going to do that. Like, you can't. I think the buzz is just ridiculously surrounding again, right? You're comparing apples and oranges. You're going to compare Aaron Rodgers, a Hall of Fame quarterback? Come on. I don't believe it's. If that's the case, then correct me if I'm wrong. What color was Cam Ward? And he went number 1. Did he not? I'm just asking. Educate me. Was Cam Ward African-American quarterback? Was Cam Ward a black quarterback? Certainly wasn't white. Did he not go first to the Titans? You guys, the Sanders fans, you want to make it black or white. I'm not going to play that game with you. I'm not. Is it just possible that maybe the kid is not as good as some make him out to be? And plus, if you have a piss poor attitude and the pundits and the draft experts see something on film, then that's kind of a red flag. I mean, come on, guys. What are we doing here with this stuff, right? Seriously, what are we doing here? If you can play, you can play. And I still I want to see if he can play. I want to see if he can play because I still stand by what I said. I don't think he's going to be a very good NFL quarterback. And I don't care if he's white, black, yellow, green, purple. I don't care. I just never was high on him. And I watched enough when he was with Colorado. And quite frankly, I don't even know if Dart's going to be a very good quarterback. I think Ward's going to be a very good quarterback because I watched a lot of him and I saw his body of work. But you're not going to tell me that, even the kid Milrow, I don't know how good this kid's going to be. If I watch him, I watch him. I give you a comment. I give you a thought on him. But Sanders has an opportunity. If he's as good as you guys think he is, then guess what? Then Sanders will win the starting position if he gets the reps. He's going to have to earn that role, period. He's going to have to earn that spot. And he's got an opportunity. Look, Flacco is how old now? 41. Pickett is not good. And then you got the kid Dylan Gabriel. But if there's a head coach that's enamored with one quarterback over the other, then what you have to do is you got to get your reps in. You got to show up. You got to be quiet. You can't have an attitude. You got to watch film. You got to be a team player. And you have to make the most of your opportunity when you have it, when you get it. And if that means 7-on-7, 11-on-11, if that means joint practices, if that means, getting a little bit of a cup of coffee, some action in the preseason, then you have to take advantage of it. And this kid should be playing with a chip on his shoulder because that slide cost him like $37 million. I mean, so why wouldn't you be pissed off and you want to show everyone that you can play? Go out and earn the job. Win it. And I'll say for any quarterback. Any quarterback. Listen, Cam Ward was drafted number 1. You know the Titans were going to start him, but Cam Ward still is going to go out there and prove that he's worthy of being a number 1 draft pick. He's got to earn that right. He's got to earn the respect of his teammates. And by the way, that's another team. You lose a backup quarterback. Why is Tennessee not calling Cleveland right now? Try to pry away a quarterback. That makes no sense. Makes no sense at all. So look, it is a polarizing position, the quarterback position in the NFL. And when you drop, like some of these players have dropped, there are reasons for players dropping. Rodgers dropped. Elway, right? Had the issues. Marino, people weren't touching Marino. Brady. I mean, quarterbacks drop for so many reasons. No one can sit here and tell you flat out, this is the reason this quarterback dropped, period. Nobody knows because we don't know what the owners and these GMs and these head coaches are thinking. We can speculate, but if you hear a lot of, the guy's not interviewing well, he's kind of an attitude, he's kind of a hard case, he's kind of, already kind of picking and choosing where he wants to go. I don't think it helped that Deion said some of the things that he said about landing spots. I don't think that helps. But again, he's going to have an opportunity because Cleveland's going to be bad. And if he makes the roster, which again, when you're a 4th, 5th round draft pick, risk to reward, you give him some reps and you see what he can do. You can see what he can do. But some of these other guys that you guys want to talk about and mention, I mean, the body of work is there. You win a couple Super Bowls, you're 35, 36, played in the NFL 15, 20 years. You know what you got to deal with. You know what you have to deal with. Now, Russell Wilson, to actually counter that argument, Russell Wilson, Sean Payton basically was like, hey, man, no parking spaces here. No. No, I don't care who you are, right? And Russell Wilson has been known to not give his cell phone out to his teammates. You have to go through his secretary. I mean, Brandon Jacobs told me that story with some of the guys that he knew from Seattle back in the day. Russell Wilson would not give out his cell phone. I mean, you're talking about the quarterback of the team. If you guys want to collaborate, text, watch film, get something to eat, hang out, commiserate, whatever, bond, that's not who Russell Wilson is. That's why I didn't like the signing by the Giants. I would actually, believe it or not, I think that locker room would be a little more loose with Jameis Winston if you threw him in there as a starter and then you had Dart as a backup. I mean, at least with Winston, it's going to be a little entertaining. He might throw for 500 yards and 5 picks. At least the offense is going to move a little bit. I think Wilson is going to play very conservative for the Giants, and that's going to cost him too. Because if he knows he tries to be uberly aggressive, takes bad sacks, bad picks, he's going to get benched. But what is he going to be able to get away with? Dink and dunk and dink and dunk. And that's not going to get it done. It's not. All right, quick timeout. We'll close things out on the other side. We'll take you up to 6.
This is what the Down Beach Seafood Fest is all about. It's about community, it's about friends, it's about culture, right? The food culture in Atlantic County is rich.
All right, a couple minutes before we get out of here, let me get to the Qfecta. A lot of early baseball games today. Really didn't get into too much baseball. I wanted to. Let me pull up. What do we got here? So we'll go Blue Jays tonight, plus 120 over the Yanks, who, again, they need to get rid of Boone. Rangers, minus 135 over the A's. Oh, one WNBA play, Mercury, laying 7.5 tonight against the Dream. And as far as scores around baseball, as I mentioned, there were so many early games today. Astros up on the Diamondbacks 3-2. Brewers all over the Mariners 10-2. Dodgers and the Twins right now knotted up at 1 apiece in the 7th. The Phillies, I think that is a 6? That's an early. That's a very early start tonight for the Phillies. I don't think it's 7:10. I think it might be a not a 6:4. No, it is. Pardon me. It's a. It is a 7 o'clock start against the Red Sox. What a crazy win last night or the other night with that check swing. O's and the Guardians. You had the Reds over the Nats. Marlins beat the Pods. Giants, a little bit of a run here. They beat the Braves. Pirates over the Tigers. Mets doubled up the Angels. Royals over the Cubs. And the Rockies got a win over the Cardinals. They were a nice little hit on the money line as well. All right, tomorrow, Lloyd Vann's going to join us. Also, we're going to see if we can grab Steve Gardner for a couple minutes. If not, we'll do Lloyd. A lot of NFL. I want to get into some baseball, a little more NBA. Jonathan Marshall Friday, Football Friday, What the Frick Friday. John Bueller is going to join us as well in his weekly spot. Let me get a couple more comments in here. Sergeant Delaware chimes in. Q, that's a good comment you made and actually a good thought. You saw 2 games from Arch. You're going to have to see it a whole season. He could actually turn out to be a bust. He could. But again, the scouts that are there every day, they know more than we do because they're watching it firsthand. I always say, as much as we can sit here and second guess, and sometimes we're right, and a lot of times we're wrong, we don't know what they don't. We don't know what they know. We don't know what they see, what they hear. We're not in those rooms. I had the pleasure of talking to some guys that were first-round draft picks over the years, and they would kind of go through with me the whole interviewing process and how they're coached in a certain way. And everything is scrutinized because once they walk out, that first impression is flat out gone. The rest, the meeting is one thing. Meeting you, looking at you eye to eye, man to man, that's priority. The film is second, right? Because a lot of stuff can be glossed over. I can coach up with certain things. Are you willing to be coached up? Are you open to be coached up? Do you have an open mind? Are you going to set the ego aside? And those are things that they look for. So it's a good conversation and good comments from you guys today on the quarterbacks as well coming out and, of course, in the NFL. All right, good stuff from Costco. Don't forget, give me a follow on social media at RichQ on Q, the YouTube channel, TryX57, of course, on X, IG, TikTok, RichQ on the mic. We will be back in the saddle tomorrow. Never an inconvenience from 4 to 6 right here on Middays with Q. Have a good sports Wednesday. You got a couple baseball games, as I alluded to, and we'll talk a little more baseball tomorrow, NBA, NFL, and and of course, your comments out there. We always encourage you guys to get in on the conversation Monday to Friday from 4 to 6. As we always like to say, have a good Sports Wednesday. Be safe, be sound.